Hey everybody, real quick, I just want to put this at the front, and I'm going to be doing this every single week, Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time, this animation talk show, or the animation talk show, as I've very uncreatively called it. Every week I'm going to hold a stream where we talk about new episodes of shows that have come out, talk about news in the animation industry, and I'm going to look at it from this perspective of people like myself who aren't in the industry, just what we can glean from social media and news websites and such. I don't know, talk about animation and cartoons. It's my favorite thing. It's what I'm building this entire YouTube channel around and most of my brand around. I love cartoons and I love animation, and I want to share that love and open it up to be a bigger conversation with people. And I think this is a good way to go about it. Twitch gives us the tools to have an active conversation with people in a live medium. That's what this is. So please enjoy this, the first episode. It's a little bit rough. I have some kinks to work out in the system, but I'll find a way to produce everything in a much cleaner way. And feel free to tell me what I should do to improve this show. Let me know what you think about this and what can be done to improve. I hope you enjoy. Thank you. What's up, guys, gals, and non-binary pals? My name is Cody Hansel, and this is an experiment. This is a test of something that I haven't done before, where essentially I'm going to, on a weekly basis, start talking about the news that comes up in the animation world, in the animation cycle, or at least as much that I can glean from it, as well as also just taking a look at my favorite scenes and shots from new episodes that have come out, and talking about those and what maybe the future of that is, while also discussing with you all, the audience, what else is happening and maybe your favorite shots, looking at those. And this is a pretty nuts week to talk about all of this stuff, because there is a lot. There's a lot that has happened this week. I mean, we got the finale of Rise of the TMNT, and that on its own right is a full load of stuff to talk about. We have my favorite episode of Owl House that has come out so far, and may very well stay my favorite episode of Owl House. But the sky is the ceiling on this show. The new episode of Amphibia was very cool and good, and Hazbin Hotel got picked up by A24, and there's a whole lot to talk about on that front. As well, we also got not an official announcement, but kind of a leaked announcement on the dates that DuckTales is going to be coming back, which I believe is sometime in October or September. I think it's September. October seems too. Sometime in September, we're getting DuckTales back. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to look at. There's a whole world of things to get into. Speaking of my friends in the animation industry, you forgot to link Bonnie and Nick's Twitch channel. Yeah, you should do that. Yeah, and I guess talking about Nick real quick. Nick is a friend of mine who works at Nickelodeon. He's a very cool dude. He's done a lot of really cool stuff, and he is like working on like pitching shows around while also storyboarding on Casa Grandes. Like, he's doing a lot of really great shows, a lot of really great work. And also, if you are interested in learning anything about storyboarding or animation, if you're wanting to learn anything about storyboarding and anything like that, go watch Nick's stream, because he is providing all sorts of information on that. Pretty phenomenal. A great resource, and you'd be starving yourself not to use it. Also, I just updated the chat thing. It's a little transparent. I think it looks a little bit better now. All right. I mean, let's just go ahead and start hopping into things. Let's start hopping into things to talk about, because there is a lot to talk about. Boop. Let's hop over to Twitter. And I think we're going to start with the Rise news. Let's do Owl House first. All right, let's do Owl House first. Whatever, that's fine. I already got that pulled up anyway. So, which one of these is Owl House? One of these is Amphibia, and one of these is Owl House. Oh, God. Amphibia, this is Owl House. All right, Owl House, woo! So, when it comes to this episode of Owl House, I don't want to spoil. I'm going to spoil some of it, yeah. But I want to talk about just kind of my favorite shots and my favorite scenes from it, as well as the episode as a whole. The episode as a whole is very, very good. It's a really fun story, a fun adventure, and it gleams a lot into Luz as a character, where she's dealing with how guilty she feels about lying to her mother, right? and the fear that comes with lying to a parent, right? She's talking, it goes into that, as well as the general, while that's happening, Amity is going through a fear of her own where she has to deal with this thing called Grom on Grom Fright or Prom Night, which is what this is a big parody of. And there's a fear that she has, and her fear is very, 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 very. We're going to go ahead and pull up a couple of my favorite scenes from that. 2 scenes in particular I want to talk about for Owl House. Go ahead and find it real quick. It's down while I look. Oh, we got an ad. All right. This is something I know to not do next time, which is just record what I want to show. Oh, well. Yes, we know. Talk so separately. Wait a second. This is Amphibia. House? Oh, that was up next. Oh, my. All right. We're learning lessons today here, friends. Learning lessons. It comes with 85, though. Well, I don't even want one of them, so. Here we are. Here's the problem that we run into. All right. So the first thing we want to look at is probably the funniest joke in the episode. Let's see. It would be, yeah, right around. Yeah, here it is. So I love this joke so much. The joke starts right here. So, yep. The joke starts right here in the episode, where we see this bit of conversation between Ida and Luz.
You could pull off red eyeshadow.
Girl, you can pull off anything.
Oh yes, Hulu, the best option I have. So, oh, a little bit too late. Boop.
Off red eyeshadow.
Boop.
She saved you
Boop.
from Luz.
Your pay grade.
Here we
You're
go.
Human. You're fragile.
Hey, I've been learning lots of new spells. I could totally handle it.
There's a horrifying spider in your hair.
Right there.
I'm not as fragile as you think, Ida. And I can't be so easily fooled either.
So,
Maybe you were.
so what I expected from this joke was she would say that, she would turn around, the spider would be on the back of her head, she would slam the door, and you would hear a scream, right? Like, that's the very typical execution of the joke. That's typically how that joke plays out. It's like, okay, haha, yeah, that's a very easy joke to make funny because it's just kind of intrinsically funny. It subverts the character's expectation and then turns it around on them. But they stretched the joke out so much in this, where right here we're at 6:42. We're gonna go all the way to 7:31, and the joke still hasn't been paid off yet.
I'm Grom Queen. Unless I can find a replacement, who'd want to switch with me? I would. What?
Also a great moment between
Amity
Amity and
right.
Luz.
I'll do it. I'll take your place and face Grom in the arena.
She's all brave. She's all big and bad right here. She's making her big speech saying, I can do this. I can face fear for you.
I'll be your fearless champion.
Just the motion of her slamming her face into the mud.
And face Grom in the arena. I'll be your fearless champion.
Oh my god, it's so good. Oh, they waited like a minute and a half to play through that joke, to pay off that joke, because they had this big moment where she's going to be heroic and brave and really show off that she's heroic and brave. And then, bam, right back in her face. Oh my god, it's so good. They took a classic joke and stretched it out so long while making the payoff 1,000 times funnier than it would have been normally. Oh my god, I love that joke so much. It's so good. Also, Rosa, Cody reacts to Cody reacting to Cody reacts to reacting to Cody. That sounds like a Jesse Cox. Isn't Jesse Cox and what's his face doing that right now, where they just keep reacting to the reactions of the reaction of a reaction to a reaction video? Ugh. That, oh my god, that joke is so good. Whoever came up with that joke, I don't know if that's a writer joke or a board joke, but god, I think it feels like a board artist joke to me, but it might be a writer joke. And yeah, that's hilarious. That's great. But then we have the scene that is the reason why this episode is amazing. And I don't know if Spencer Wan animated this entire scene. I know he animated part of it, at least one shot, but I don't know if Spencer animated the entire scene. And something you'll notice with a lot of shows, especially on the Disney shows recently, but on any show, is that you have your standard animation, which is the animation they send overseas. The board artists take the work that they've done. It goes through all the production and everything for like board and layout and all that here in America. That all happens here or wherever the studio is based. And then it gets shipped to another country for the bulk of the animation because that's cheaper. But there are still scenes every once in a while that look different, that are animated differently. And those are animated in-house by an in-house animator. And that's because those scenes need more work. They need more touch, right? They have a lot more going into them, so they need a little bit more specific touch, and the studio wants that specific scene or that specific shot to look a lot better. And they did that in a couple episodes of Owl House already, but they did it in this episode as well. And oh, is it the best one yet? The Ida fight's still good, but this, and boom, right here, animation style change. Oh, that motion right there. So we back it up a little bit. We get the spin, and then impact, establishing that after they turned around, we're establishing the impact. We see the magic circle forming, which normally we only see the magic circle forming on the fingertips. So it's interesting to see it in a different position here. But then to finish the circle, we get a spin, and then she pulls her legs back together and stands up. Ooh, it's such a clean motion. So we get this, they pull together, stand, the spell finishes, and now they're on top of one of Amity's little monster dudes. Oh my god, it's so good. With the big crescent moon. Oh, very, very nice. Also, just that face. That face right there. So good. All of her little spells right there. A spell she learned earlier in this episode, by the way, which was established in the cold open. Bam. Establishing the throw. Spell combined. And their powers combined. Taking this terrifying, horrible monster and turning it into something beautiful. Bam. Shine. And back to the regular animation style. Ooh, it's so good. I also want to go back and like look at the catching motion itself. Can I frame by frame in here? It does not look like I can frame by frame. Oh, no, I can go back by 10 seconds. I'm going to be pressing the space bar a whole lot right here, so get ready for that. Let's motion again. Bam. Fling. Big snack. Uh-oh, bad snack. Tummy hurt bad. Right here. So, I love the animation in the Owl House so much. This shot I know is animated by Spencer Wan. If you don't know who Spencer Wan is, go follow him on Twitter. I believe his Twitter handle is just Spencer Wan. Let me check. Spencer Wan. Spencer Wan Twitter. Okay, so himself and Haley Foster storyboarded this shot. Oh, I'm definitely gonna be showing this on stream here. Okay, yeah. I'll be showing this off in a second, but like, just to go through this, we got right here. Can I adjust speed and settings? Let's see. I do not see speed and settings. All right, so we got this shot right here. Oh, all right. So 1 frame, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this right here. It's so few frames, but it sells the motion so well. That right there was 4 frames. 4 frames for a whole spin, and it looked so good because Spencer just knows what poses to accent and show off clearly. And there's like no motion blur in this. It's all just lead in and follow through. And I'm so used to scenes having motion blur to sell these better. And a personal preference of mine would have been motion blur. I would have liked to have seen some smear frames or some kind of, not even motion blur. Yeah, smear frames. I would have loved to see some smear frames in this to really sell how clean the pose is. Also, it's really funny right here. You don't see it because it moves so quick. But right here, Amity has a really funny, like, off-model chin presence right here. And, like, that, her face should already be tucking in there, I think, based on her regular model. But I think it's funny to see this. And it's not a mistake. Whenever you see it in motion, you don't notice it. I just think it's so, like, I think it's fun to point out. And then we finally get our lead into the last pose. One little setup for that. That was probably on ones, those 2 frames right there. And pop. Such a big movement, but it sells so well. It sells so well. We'll watch it back again in full speed. Yeah, like, you see it again in full speed. You see all the little individual moments of it, and it works so well. Even though, like, we saw the funny chin thing and all that. No motion blur, no smear frames to think of, but it still sells the motion and the acting so well on this shot. And again, right now we're on Spencer Wan's animation, and then now we're back to the overseas animation. We're back to the studio animation. Oh my god. And to show you, I say this all the time in my YouTube videos, but to show you what I mean by follow the people that make what you like. If you watch a show, go look up who makes that stuff and follow it, because then you get gold mine content like this. This is Spencer Wan's Twitter, @SpencerWan. Very straightforward. He is a phenomenal animator. He's working on Spider-Verse 2. You see right here, previously an animation supervisor on the Owl House and a director on Castlevania. Like, such good stuff. I bet he has even more on his Tumblr. He's only a year older than me? Damn you, Spencer, you talented son of a bitch. Why you gotta be better than me? Why you gotta be cool? Also, subtle flex here, but I have DM'd Spencer before, and he responded. Just saying. But right here, like, you get content like this where, let me blow this up. Can I make this bigger? Let's see. Here we go. You get goldmine content like this, where you get to see the behind the scenes of what he's doing, right? You get to see all the little animation, all the little details, and you can I pause? Yes. Okay. Like right here. We found a better frame to show this on. Right here. So, in his work, on his side margins, he's keeping track of everything he needs to keep track of to make this shot and to keep track of all the information he's got. So, you'll see right here, he has these solid red areas, and these red areas aren't moving. These are stiff. These aren't going to be moving in the shot. But the black lines are what he's still animating, what's still moving. And he has his timing charts right here for all the different elements of it. I don't know what E and B are labeled as here, if I had to guess, probably just different elements of the motion. B is probably like the background character, the Grom blowing up in the background. But yeah, because B is still there. And we see right here, we see like all the stagnant motions. Right here, everything is black because everything is moving. The little red bits are the only things that aren't going to be really moving a whole lot in this scene. But everything else, and it's also things like the red line, because of Owl House's style. We go back to Owl House real quick. Just go back to the shot we're looking at. Owl House's style, right? The reason why he has the red line right here next to the eyes is because that part isn't going to be a solid black line. It's not going to be a solid, it's not going to be an outline, basically. The whites are colored separately and then bleed into the skin. That's how they do eyes on this show. So when we go back to the actual GIF shot, we can see that he's using these markers to show that. That way he doesn't, you know, draw an entire black line all the way through it. We get more of that. We get the whole motion. We see all the individual poses. Oh, and if this is the same frame, I might be off just by a frame or something. But like right here, he has motion blur. Right here, he has smear frames, but the smear frame isn't in the final. But he has a smear frame right here. He has the timing chart back here for what the motion of this guy is going to be doing, as well as a little note on the frame here. And then you get the big final pose. That's frame 25, it looks like. And just the number of frames is going through. This entire thing, all of their motion, all of Amity and Luz's motion was 37 frames based on this GIF. Yeah, you see it counting right there. Bam. You get frame 37. Yeah, right there. 35, 36, 37. That's the last frame of animation these two have. And then it pans up, and we get the rest of the explosion of Grom in the background. And oh my god, it's just so cool. But you get information like that. And then over here, you get to see the boarded shots he did. And the fact, he says in the tweet, the storyboards for the dance is a collaboration between Haley Foster and myself. At some point, I got carried away in time to Vio Loose Loose by Kumi Tenioki. This is my first time getting to do anything even remotely queer, and I've never been prouder of any board. And that's so good. This show is so gay, and I love it for it. But right here, we can actually like see the storyboard in process. We got sound. There it is. These are all keys and like some breakdowns. No in between. All keys and breakdowns. I mean, that was almost no different. There's maybe 10 extra frames in that spin. Like between what we saw here and what we saw in the actual animation breakdown. And then we get the finale there. And oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. Go ahead and like and retweet that. Like and retweet that. Okay. Got that. Okay, that was yesterday. That's right. Like, and if I wasn't following Spencer Wan, if I wasn't following Spencer Wan from so long ago, I might not have seen this behind the scenes stuff. So, if there's a show that you like and a show that you want to see work from, or if you just want to learn, the best place to learn is from the people making the content that you like. And Spencer right here knocked it out of the park. This was phenomenal. This was so much fun to look at and break down. And me, somebody who's kind of starting to get a little bit more into art and animation after so long, there's a lot to glean and learn from this. Like, I have a habit of putting way too many frames into my animation whenever I'm doing little animation tests. And this shows you can do a lot with very little as far as the number of frames. What's more important is the pose and the motion itself between them. And that's phenomenal. This is so good. Now we've done that, let's go ahead and hop on over to play. Boom bam. Got ma'am. Amphibia. And Amphibia didn't really have any like huge beats that I really wanted to talk about, but there's a few story things that happen in the second half. Also, hold on, where's the good joke? Probably like right around. Yeah, here it is. Boop. I got up. Here we go. This is the good joke from the episode. One of the really good jokes.
I like the sound of that. See you later.
Looks like we just hit pay dirt, Frog Zeus.
Say, Mr. Pons, do you ever get the feeling that we exist simultaneously in multiple parallel universes, completely unaware of the other's very existence?
You been licking yourself again, Frog Zeus?
Caught me again, Mr. Pons.
There's a lot that goes into that joke. Like, from a kid's perspective, haha, it's funny. Frog boy lick himself, haha, blah, blah, blah. But as an adult watching this, like, there was that whole licking frogs, like frogs having a drug effect on people thing that was years ago, giving them like hallucinations and junk. That's a reference to. Also, hi, we have Alex Hirsch in the studio. Let's utilize him. So they did. Dana Terrace flexing the fact that she has Alex Hirsch on speed dial. Just being able to use him for whatever voices. No, wait. No, I'm wrong. Dana Terrace is Owl House. Who makes Amphibia? I forget who the creator of Amphibia is. Oh, God. Creator of Amphibia. Names for Matt Braley. Matt Braley hit up Dana and was like, hey, mind if I borrow Alex for an episode? And she's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. But in this episode as well, also, like, there's so much to break down as far as like the Gravity Falls references in this. First of all, the Curiosity Hut is a triangle with an eye on it, and there's another triangle with an eye right here. So, you know, Bill Cipher. There's two characters on the front of the Curiosity Hut that are like the same character, just flipped. That could be a reference to like the twins, Abel and Dipper, but that's probably a bit of a stretch. Also, I like how these giant pine trees are potted. Like they're in pots. These huge pine trees are in pots. And I just find that like funny. That's just a good, funny joke to me. They call him the curator, and then he's called Mr. Pons. So Pons. But they literally just call this character Frog Zeus. Like it's not even subtle. Just Frog Zeus. The Gravity Falls, the Mystery Shack / shirt. So good. They ran out of subtle names. I don't think they planned for a subtle name in the first place. There's also another reference, another very bland Cypher reference. I think in the establishing shot for the shop. Let's see. Boop. Yeah, right there. Oh, I just had it. There it is. Like, it's literally just Bill Cipher. A triangle with an eye on it. They're missing a top hat and a cane, and they got Bill Cipher right there. Very, very referent. Very, very obvious reference. This episode in general is pretty fun. But as far as, like, story beats go, Amphibia has a lot less episodes that play towards the main narrative of the story. They have one every couple of episodes. But in this episode, she finds out that in the museum, there is this thing right here. A Skip Man. And a Skip Man is just a CD player or a Walkman, as I doubt some of you know what that is based on the demographic. But it's just a CD player, right? But it's the only other thing she's ever seen from her world. And this is the second instance of technology we're getting in Amphibia, where the first instance was the frog bot from earlier in season 2. And she desperately wants it. And we find out later in the episode that the curator got this from Utopia, which is where they're going to try and find more answers. So with them heading to Utopia, trying to find more answers, trying to get more information on it, they're already heading in the right direction. And if they have more of these artifacts, Utopia seems to have evidence on how Anne and her friends got to this world and all of that good stuff. Also, based on what number episode of Amphibia this is, which I think for season 2 is episode 5, which is technically episodes 9 and 10, because each episode is set of 2 11s. This is episode 10, technically speaking, which means we're probably coming up to another big story revelation as far as the series is concerned. We know based on the intro that the third friend that got pulled into Amphibia, Marcy, is going to be making an appearance in this season. We haven't seen her yet. I think we saw her in the final shot of season 1, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly. I'd have to go back and check it out, which I can do real quick. But I feel like we're getting very close to Marcy's reveal in the season. All right, let me check and see Marcy. It's gonna make us watch an ad. I'm gonna mute it. Mute the ad. Keep it quiet. Keep it silent. But just based on how these episodes roll out, we're getting very, very close to. Oh my god, do we have to watch an entire? Oh my god, we're going back to the. We're getting very close to like another big story beat for Amphibia, and I'm very excited to see what it is. If you guys haven't watched Amphibia, go watch it. If you haven't watched Owl House, go watch it. It's the best show on television right now, considering the fact that Rise of the TMT is over, and we'll get to Rise of TMNT. We'll get to there. We'll talk about it. There's a lot to unpack from Rise. A lot. There's a lot of people in the audience who feel betrayed. They feel hurt. There's a lot of things going around about it, and I think it's important that we put some context on it and try and point it in the right direction. And that's something we're gonna have to look at here today. All right, cool. Let's find what I'm talking about from Amphibia. I like how there's a whole giant chunk of a Pokemon ad here. All right, do we see Marcy in the final shot? No, it just is into part 1. So we don't even see Marcy in season 1. All right. We don't even see Marcy in the flashback of season 1. She's only mentioned. So we don't see her here. But there's a lot going on in animation right now. We're going to go ahead and segue over to that since we're here. First thing we'll talk about is Hazbin Hotel and the fact that it got picked up by A24. Let's see. Where's my Twitter? Here we go. Boop. And search Hazbin Hotel. Because there is a lot to talk about. Let's see. Source A24. We'll scroll down A24's Twitter, and here we are. Boop. So, A24 announced we're going straight to hell with VisiPop. Hashtag Hazbin Hotel. Coming to TV soon. A24 is known in many ways for kind of rubbing up on some boundaries as far as some of the films they produce and such. Not so much in the sense that like they're doing extremely inappropriate things or anything like that, but you know, films like Hereditary, which was a very unique horror film, a very unique thriller horror crossover that pushed a lot in a very artsy way. It's a very artsy production house. And I'm not going to say everything A24 makes is gold. That's not even true. From what I've seen and based on like reviews that I've checked out in like a cursory form, they're probably like 70% okay to maybe even bad and 30% great. Like when A24 produces something that's great, it's really great. But at the same time, they've also produced a lot of stuff that's like, this is an indie art house film and it's indie art house, all right. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's what A24 does. It's what they make. And just to get into this is their first animated series that they're picking up and promoting, right? They've never taken an animated series and promoted it for television, produced it for television, and I'm interested to see what they do with it, especially in regards to Vivzy Pop's team, which is called Spindle Horse. Spindle Horse Toons is Vivzy Pop's like animation studio that do like purely remote work. And I'm curious if A24 is going to stick with Spindle Horse while producing the show itself. Like they're going to still be the primary animation studio behind everything, with their computer connected remote way of producing the show, or if Spindle Horse is going to try and move it to a more traditional studio practice, or they might just try and get everybody from Spindle Horse together in the same area to work in a physical studio. I don't know, and I'm interested to see where that goes from the production side of things. From the side of like the actual show, Hazbin Hotel, whenever I watched it initially, having followed Vivzy Pop for years, I wasn't thrown off by the style of the show. I kind of knew that Vivzy had this very dark kind of edgy humor to herself, but I thought that the way that she utilized that edgy humor in this was well done, because everything they did, especially in like the big song in the scene, right? She's going around and, you know, calling out people who are, you know, child molesters and attackers, all these people who belong in hell. We can all agree that these people belong in hell. She's saying that, hey, all of you terrible, horrible people that live in my kingdom of hell, I am doing my best to find a path for redemption for you, and it's here at the Happy Hotel. And that's what we're gonna do it. We're gonna fix everything, and we're gonna get you redeemed. And that's an extremely interesting concept that I think works with A24 as a production house and as a brand. Regardless of how you feel about Hazbin Hotel and Vivzy Pop and her history, which I've done my own research on, and a lot of it just seems like people calling her out for things that she did at a much younger age, and that as she's gotten older, she's learned from it, and she's learned how to handle things. A lot of it just seems like she did these things when she was younger, and now she no longer does these things, and if she does them in a better way. Teenagers make bad jokes. That's how it is. But adults look back at those bad jokes and cringe, and I believe that's the case for Vivzy. But regardless of how you feel about all of that, Hazbin Hotel being picked up by A24, a purely adult animation being picked up by a production house, be put in front of an audience of people on television, it's pretty impressive. Like, we have shows that are meant for adults, right? Like, we have Final Space, we have Star Trek Below Decks, and these shows aren't targeted towards kids. We have Rick and Morty, and these shows aren't targeted. It's going to be on TV, yeah, Kibi. These shows aren't targeted towards kids, but they're on television, and they don't ever cross certain lines, right? They don't push the boundary very, very hard. That, and stylistically, there are some things. Stylistically speaking, there are some desires there from the animation community. Like, all of these shows have a limited form of animation in some way. They look good, they're presentable, but as somebody who loves to watch animation and who loves following animators online, all of them and myself will tell you, very rarely does something really visually interesting happen as far as like the animation goes. Every now and again, they'll do something really cool, like what's that one scene in Bob's Burgers? Hold on. Bob's Burgers Bridge. Yeah, here it is.
Tree or
Right here. Like this, whenever I saw it for the first time on Bob's Burgers, I was like, wow, that's insane that they did this. Right. This is probably the most fluid animation I've seen on Bob's Burgers. And now, granted, I haven't watched it in a while, but this is probably the best animation I'd seen on Bob's Burgers up till this point. Like, I've cracked my voice. Like, the motion, the movement, the way Teddy flails around and how clean, how many frames of animation there is in it. Like, Bob's Burgers didn't have animation that smooth in it at that point. There was a couple of, like, the end gags and a few, like, faster motions in the show that were fairly clean to look and watch at. And the movement of the show itself is clean, but it's also fairly stiff. It's not a overacted show or anything. But this bit right here had so much acting and movement in it that it just blew my mind watching that animation on Bob's Burgers. Yeah, not saying that Bob's Burgers is bad. This, or animation of Bob's Burgers is bad. It's just very traditional adult animation where the animation is quite limited. It's a bit stifled. Purely because the audience seems to be more, I believe animation studios look at the audience and think, okay, they're here to hear the funny jokes that adults can listen to, but also the show is okay for their kid to watch in front of them because every now and again they might say a swear like damn or ass, or hell, but for the most part, they don't do anything raunchy or gross. And the jokes are subtle enough that kids won't get it, but adults will find it pretty funny. And the writing in Bob's Burgers is very good. It's a very funny show. But seeing this bit of animation in particular, just boop, 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 right here where he does the rolls. Like this right here, the head wobble and stretch as it goes up, and then his body settles back down, pulls, and then we get the big spin. Come on, give me the spin. Give me the spin, big guy. Come on, Teddy. Yeah, right here. You can see where his arm is stretched quite a bit to help sell the motion of the spin. To still have a lot of, like, but still, this is a lot of really clean frames. There's no, like, smearing, really. There's a little bit of squatch and stretch, but not enough. But not a lot. But enough to sell the motion better. That and, like, the big, like, trying to backspring himself back up is very, very good. But that's uncommon, right? For adult animation. Hazbin Hotel, the entire thing is unique animation for every shot. It's all frame by frame. There's no long held stills. There's no big weights in it. All the animation in Hazbin Hotel, it's basically all frame by frame. There's very little tweeting. And A24 is basically just giving Hazbin Hotel from what I can tell, as we know right now, this is Hazbin Hotel with a real production budget behind it. It's not Hazbin Hotel with a Kickstarted budget or a crowdsourced budget, a merch budget, anything like that. This is a full production budget. And we're going to get to see what Hazbin Hotel can be with as much money thrown at it as they need to produce a real show. We don't know any information on it yet. We don't know how many episodes the season is going to be. We don't know how long the episodes are going to be. Are they going to be 11s? Are they going to be 22s? We don't know anything about that. We have no details on Hazbin Hotel besides the fact that they are giving money to the show to be produced for television. And And that's a big step for adult animation. You know, shows like it's seldom that we get shows like this. The last example I can think of where we had a very, very artsy show that had its own that had its own like big, no, not music, what am I thinking? We'll just do Samurai Jack, and I'm sure it'll come up when I'm looking. Jack versus the Ninja. Nope, not that one. Yeah, like the last time we got something like that was Samurai Jack a few years back, where the show itself is so artsy and so like stylized in its own way and very mature. This isn't the Samurai Jack that a lot of people grew up with. This is Samurai Jack's final season, and like this entire scene is Jack just going through a depressive episode with himself and having a conversation about committing suicide. But Jack himself says, you know, we're not giving up on this. But himself, the prime version of himself, the one that we saw growing up, is telling the older, more grizzled, more experienced version of him, dude, we can't keep this up. What honor is it? What honor is there to continuing this hopeless fight? We already failed. We already messed up. So the only honorable thing to do would be to end it. It's like, all right. Like, you don't get themes this dark very often in animation at all. And if they are, they're very, very subtle. This is not subtle at all. There's no subtlety in this. And Hazbin Hotel, in the one video we got for it, in the original video we got for it, the pilot episode, there's no subtlety in that at all. And shows like Samurai Jack, the final season, shows like Hazbin Hotel is pointing us in a direction where, as far as adult animation is concerned, we can start ignoring the need for subtlety in order to tell more legitimate, more serious stories. I shouldn't say more legitimate. Subtlety doesn't, like, the use of subtlety doesn't dictate whether a story is legitimized or not. But more literal stories. In the recent music video that came in for Hazbin Hotel, Addict, it's all about angel dust, and how it's all about angel dust and how he was in an abusive relationship, and relied on, you know, he relied on like drugs and alcohol to get through all of it. That ended in addiction, but at the very end, he's at the hotel, and now we get to see that. And there's no subtlety in that video. Again, it's just telling the story of this person who is hurting, who is broken, and but at the very end, we get a gleam of hope that maybe they can be redeemed, they can be fixed. They can get their life back together. And that's really, really interesting. I like that quite a bit. But Hazbin Hotel A24, if this has any success in it whatsoever, is going to open a lot of doors. And also, like, we have shows that kind of push the envelope a little bit, right? We've got shows like Rick and Morty. We've got shows like Harley Quinn. But in the case for Rick and Morty, it's very much like, it's more so the writing in Rick and Morty that kind of carries it and makes it a bit edgy. That and the fact that, like, oh, we're just going to kill everything because it's a cartoon. Like, I don't put a whole lot of serious stock in that show whenever it comes to those moments, but it does have moments of, like, very serious beats and everything that, you know, really sell the fact that we are mortal. There's mortality, morality. There's even like an attempted suicide scene in that. And there's a lot that goes into Rick and Morty, and I don't want to discredit it, but I don't think it pushes the envelope as much as a lot of its fans would like to tell you it pushes the envelope. And as far as Harley Quinn goes, it's a good show that does a whole lot. It has a whole different feel, a whole different style and humor than anything DC has made previously. It feels like the good version of Suicide Squad, considering Suicide Squad was so desperately bad. But it pushes the envelope, I think, in a lot of ways for adult animation, but it's relegated to a streaming service. It's not on television. It's relegated to a streaming service. So you have to go out of your way a bit to watch it. And of all things, it's on DC's streaming service. And not a lot of people are on DC streaming service to my knowledge. But it's still up. It still seems to be making money. I don't know. I'll have to look into that to see if DC Universe has been profitable for them. But there's a lot to go into on that. And finally, the final topic for today, Rise of the TMNT. There is a lot of Rise stuff going on right now. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Rise of the TMNT, as far as the main show goes, is over. Like, they're not producing any more episodes of Rise of the TMNT at this moment. The only thing that's coming to... There's only one more project under the Rise name that we know of, and it is the movie that's going to Netflix. That's going to be releasing on there. And within reason, a lot of the fans for Rise feel really hurt right now because Nickelodeon took Rise off of their main channel, off of Nick, and they moved it from Nick to Nicktoons. Nicktoons already gets a much smaller viewer base than Nick does. Nicktoons is essentially Nicktoons is essentially a channel relegated for old shows, side shows, and just shows that they can run on a constant cycle to keep making money off of them. But it's not where people go to watch all the new shows, watch all the new episodes. But Rise, very early in its release, got relegated to Nicktoons because its immediate release got met with a lot of backlash from people saying, this isn't good, all the turtles are the same, these aren't the turtles I grew up with. I'm going to come out and say this, it was a lot of older people coming in and saying that they didn't like this version of Rise. And there were some valid, I've read a lot of the reviews. I have a video on my channel called Reviewing Reviews, TMNT, and I use that to educate myself and form a broader opinion and get some things pointed out to me that I hadn't thought of before. And there was a lot of good stuff in there that opened my eyes. Regardless of the fact if I agreed or disagree with them, they still brought points up that I didn't recognize, things that I wouldn't have thought of watching it initially. Things like, for example, April being black. Like, yeah, I knew she was usually white, but somebody brought up the conversation that why make April black when you can make a new character who is black? And that could be the new, that could be, April doesn't have to be in this show, that could be her. And yeah, that's an interesting bit of conversation. And my final take on that was, they said, it feels like it's cash grabby, it's money grabby, right? And yeah, I can see that perspective on it. My final take on it was, yes, there are times where that is used as a cash grab and it's used very poorly, and it's very obvious when that happens. And whenever a studio does that, or whenever a company does that, they should get called out and held accountable for it. But if it's done well, then I don't have a problem with it. I think it's fine. And April in this show is the best version of April we've ever seen. I have no doubt in my mind that this is the best April. She's got a lot to her character. She's got a lot to her personality. Overall, She got the best design of any April, in my opinion. She looks great in this show. But generally speaking, a lot of the opinions of people, whenever I was reading them, that gave it extremely negative reviews were, this isn't like the Turtles I grew up with. I'm paraphrasing. And no, it's not. This is the most unique take on the Turtle we've ever had. Everything from Raph being the leader instead of Leo, to April being black, being a completely different character who's not a reporter right out the gate. There's so much to this that is different from what we're used to seeing. But on that same note, it's extremely interesting what this show did for Rise, or it did for the Turtles IP. You got, yeah, this is her in her Ninpo form with the big magical baseball bat, which is so cool. But yeah, here's a little bit of Nickelodeon hate. Nickelodeon, F you for mismanaging one of the best animated series around. So blown away by the finale, but at the same time bittersweet to an extent. I love this family, and it puts my heart in pain knowing that we may not see them again, at least until the film. Hashtag ROTMNT. Like, and yeah, I get this. I understand where they're coming from and why they're like, why they feel betrayed by Nickelodeon, because there's a lot that we didn't get as an audience on a public announcement, right? Like, where is oh boy, like there's a screenshot or a picture going around that shows all what's all this? Okay, there's an image going around that is, oh god, let's see. Come on, search. I followed this person the other day. Following. I just followed them, so they should be. Here we go. Russ Carney of America. He was a writer on Rise of TMNT. And he did a thread the other day where he was answering a whole bunch of questions related to Rise. And right here, we have this picture. And this picture shows the production of all the different episodes that have come out, right? So, as well as like, these are the ones that have gone through premise, outline, first draft, second draft, and recorded draft. And these are all the different processes they went through to get to an episode. And that's probably like a production note, like in production or a production end date or something, where they went through and they worked on everything. You have the writer for the episode, you've got the title of the episode number, and you know, we've seen a whole lot of these episodes. Battle Nexus New York, Part 1, Part 2. Todd Scouts, Goyles, Breaking Purple, Repairing the Baron. Like, a lot of these episodes got to a full release, but a lot of these episodes did not. And not all these episodes were ever going to go in production. Some of these weren't going to make it all the way through. They weren't going to get through the pitch. Some of them kind of went through a production scanner. You can see where all this is. But we see over here, you had your writers spread out for all these episodes. And then down here, you have to be decided, to be decided, to be decided. These are all the episodes that we didn't know about. And going through it, you can see like a lot of these episodes just didn't get to happen. Like Toddler Mutant Ninja Turtles. This episode's premise, if I understand right, was all the turtles except for Mikey were going to get turned into toddlers, and Mikey had to be the big brother while taking care of the other three and trying to get them back to being an adult, or to being back to being teens. And that's wild. We didn't get that. A spider's web widens. That probably would have been a like a backstory and maybe like a redemption arc for Big Mama, and we didn't get that. There's so many. The key probably would have been Karai's like redemption, or us getting Karai back, and that would have been the whole build up. But so many of these episodes, so much of these details had to get cut and then compressed down into the 4-episode finale. And the 4-episode finale is phenomenal. Some of the best animation, some of the best work the show has had to offer so far. I talked about it on a stream earlier this week, and we broke down some stuff from that. And it was so good. It was so good. And then we get to see all of this that we don't get to have. And we'll probably never know, right, Nickelodeon's full thoughts on this, their entire process and reasoning for doing this. Maybe Nickelodeon will talk about how they'll talk about how like things weren't selling like they wanted it to sell, like merch wasn't selling, the views weren't there, although people would argue that the views weren't there because they moved it off of Nickelodeon and moved it to Nicktoons really early in its airing, really early in season 1's airing process, and that's what really hit the views so bad. And then there's also the review perspective of it, where like, well, you know, if you go and you look at reviews and the score for Rise of the TMNT, it's really bad. But if you go to Rise of the TMNT on IMDb, you can see immediately why they would say that and why that would convince a lot of people. You go to Rise of the TMNT on IMDb and it has a 5.2. A 5.2 out of 10. Which is blasphemy as far as I'm concerned. This show is a 9 out of 10, 99% of the time, and a 10 out of 10 the rest of the time. But if you click on the little number, and for anybody who doesn't know this, on IMDb, you click on the number of reviews underneath, or number of stars underneath the actual like rating, it brings you to a different page where it shows you a more detailed user information, right? So if we look at this, 2,000 IMDb users have given a weighted average vote of 5.2 out of 10. The keyword here is weighted average. Because if we look at the actual ratings, 10 out of 10 stars, 50.9% of people, 50% of people who have talked about the show, 1,063 votes, 10 out of 10. That's a lot. And then you go down to 9, 5%, 8, 4.5, 7, 3.7, 6, 5, 3. And if you look at the mirror of each of these, it's always higher on the positive, right? 7's higher than 3, 8's higher than 2, 9's higher than 1, or 9's actually lower than 1. But the 1 stars, 500 people, less than 500, but about half of the 10 out of 10 votes gave the show a 1%. 22% of people said this is a 1-star show. And if you look at the arithmetic mean, which means they took all of these votes, plugged them into a calculator, and divided by the number of people who actually voted, the actual average is 6.9, so a 7 out of 10. Which, yeah, most animated series are probably going to end up at 7 out of 10 because adults are going to come in and say, it's a cartoon, it's pretty good, it's fine, and then leave. But for this one, you have this huge disparity between the positive and the negative. Like, the positive is 28% better. 28% like gap between 10 out of 10 and 1 out of 10. And IMDb gives a weighted average to these because a couple years back they were getting hit by review bombs for so many things, right? Movies would get review bombed down because they were an IP that was coming in. It's like, well, this wasn't what I had when I grew up, so people review bombed it to make it bad. On the other side, there was Suicide Squad, which people looked at and didn't know if it was going to be good or bad yet. I was hopeful it was going to be good. I really wanted it to be good, and the trailers kind of convinced me that it would be. And then I went and watched it in theaters, like, wow, this is a bad movie. Hot take, bad movie. But people, before that movie even came out, people were giving it extremely positive scores, so people would go watch it in theaters. And they were, you know, giving a bunch of uneducated, unprepared reviews to get a result that they wanted out of it, right? And whenever you get to that, you get a lot of dishonesty, and I can see why they have this weighted average on IMDb now to kind of temper expectations, right? But I don't think it should be a universal application to IMDb. I think IMDb should probably like monitor this more closely and only apply this weighted average to specific shows whenever it comes down to like to specific shows and movies that, you know, are very obviously getting a lot of positive and or negative reviews before the show actually comes out. After it comes out, take things with a grain of salt and figure out what you need to manage and everything to try and get a more accurate score. But whenever the disparity is this huge between people who give this a positive and a negative score, and you're still going to apply the weighted average, and when you go and read these reviews, that's where the big difference comes, right? As well as like the age gap, you know? If you look at the people who given the average reviews, you look at all ages, 18 or older, less than 18, no. Yeah, 18 or lower give this show a 6.6, okay? You look at that for men, they give it a 7, and you look at that for women, and they give it a 10. Then you go to 18 by 29, so a little bit older demographic, people who, if they're watching the show or they're watching anything, they're probably watching it with, you know, a more critical eye, a little bit of an older eye, or they're really fans of something. A 6.1, a 5.5 out of males, and a 7.7 out of females. Then you go to 30 to 44, people who have grown up with this IP for a very, very long time. And you see a sudden disparity, a sudden change in how the show is perceived. Suddenly, we drop 2 and some change points. We drop a point and some change. We drop 3 whole points. And then you go back to 45 plus, and it goes back up for women. And men still stay very, very low on the 45 plus. And you look at it and you can tell, like, this information right here is very telling of, like, the older generation who grew up with TMNT were the ones who review bombed it. And they were also the louder majority. They had more votes across the board than these ones did. But overall, it still has a much more positive score. So you see all these, and you go and you look at the actual reviews, and you'll see a lot of what I was talking about, where it's like, we didn't like it because of this, we didn't like it because of that. And Nickelodeon would maybe make a press release saying, like, oh, the show got a 5.2 out of 10 on IMDb, and it kind of had negative reviews early in, so we didn't feel it was a smart business decision to continue putting money into it. And from the business side of things, that's probably true. But there's a little bit of that subterfuge in there. There's a little bit of that moving words around to play into their narrative, that once you go in and you do even a little bit of deeper research, you start seeing the cracks in that excuse and how the numbers don't really add up. I mean, quite literally, they don't add up because of the whole weighted average thing. But it doesn't add up to an easily justifiable response. Now, at the same time, you also have to look into the merchandising side of this, where people who are, you know, under 18 may be spending some money on... They might be spending some money on, like, toys and merchandise, shirts, and all that good stuff, but not a ton of them. The 18 to 29 range, they're probably spending, I would say, the second most amount of money on the show, right? Like, they're going to be buying toys to put in collections. They're going to be buying merchandise to represent the stuff that they like. They're going to buy posters and everything to hang up on their walls and decorate their spaces. This is the age group I think would be putting the second most amount of money into it. But they also have the 30 through 45, which would be putting the most amount of money into this because they probably have the most expendable income, as well as the longest running relationship with the IP, with Rise of the TMNT. And whenever you look at your oldest, most dedicated fans, and you see that they generally dislike the show, at least the widest majority of them dislike the show, you're gonna, from a business perspective, think they dislike the show, they're not gonna spend money on it. We already have a contract with this animation studio, so we have to live with that contract and get that through, because it would cost us more money to cut the contract early in a lot of ways. Obviously, not enough for them to cut the episodes in half for season 2, but you go through and you see this, and from the business perspective, again, is going to make some sense. Is going to make some sense, and on a cursory look, is going to make sense what they're saying. But we're not seeing a real. The deeper you look into it, it just doesn't feel as easy to justify. But there's a lot of fans who even go through all this and they feel betrayed by Nickelodeon, and I think that they're justified in that feeling. But they also don't go about telling Nickelodeon that in the right ways. Not to say that they're sending a lot of abusive stuff to a major corporation, which major corporations get that all the time and they have to deal with it forever. And Nickelodeon's been fairly quiet in responding to this, from what I can tell. But if you go through and you look at a lot of the replies under these hashtags, you see, a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of love going on around here. But then you have things like this, like barely airing episodes, refusing to mention, ignoring ROT and T fans, shoving the show aside, active sabotage, this whole meme. And then why isn't it profitable enough? And yeah, a lot of this is true. They didn't air they didn't air episodes often. They didn't mention it on social media hardly at all. If they did, it was just to announce a new episode coming out. They didn't do a lot of like tweeting out GIFs and response images like they do with a lot of their other shows, including the old TMNT from 2012. They don't respond to fans. They did kind of put the show off to the sidebar, but I would argue that they do that. That kind of goes into everything else. This feels redundant. And active sabotage. Yeah, you could probably define it as active sabotage, but whenever they saw that the show probably wasn't profitable from their perspective, and that it wasn't going to be the huge success that they would probably hope for out of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, probably like how 2012 was, because apparently 2012 was extremely successful. Yeah, I can see where Nickelodeon made the decisions that they did, but it's also easy to say that, and I would believe accurate to say that they made those decisions too early. They stopped airing Rise on Nickelodeon, I think, after 6 sets of episodes. I think after six sets of episodes in the first season, like 6 to 8, they stopped airing the new episodes on Nickelodeon and they started airing them on Nicktoons. And Nicktoons already gets a lot lower viewership than Nickelodeon does, because it's the backup channel. It's the watch shows on repeat, keep it in the background to entertain your young child thing, or go back to watch episodes of shows that don't air anymore. And they put TMNT with all of that. Not that they don't show new episodes, but it's mostly old episodes with some new episodes, not their currently running lineup like Nickelodeon is. And that feels very disingenuous, and it feels very... It's sus, man. At the end of the day, it's just sus. But all of this, I am saying to say, if you're a Rise fan, and there's a lot of Rise fans out there, and I know you're hurting, and I know this sucks, and it sucks for me as a Rise fan, because I love the show. I've been watching the show since the end of season 1, and it's phenomenal. It's so great, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But know where to direct the conversation to. Don't send, like, don't go to the creators of the show. Don't go to Ant Ward. Don't go to the animation studio, which is called something Horse. Oh god, I forgot again. Uh-oh. I did it. I think. Following. Here we go. Called the studio not long ago. Bark something. Bark. Hold on. Tom Bark will help me. Tom Bark will help me. You're the guy who runs the animation studio. Help me. All right. Tom doesn't talk about his own animation studio. We're moving on. Ark House? Spark? At Ark. Flying Park, that's it. Flying Park Studios is the animation studio. Don't tweet at them. Don't tweet at any of the artists or the animators saying, hey, why aren't you bringing back Rise? Why aren't you making more Rise? Because they don't have control of that. They don't get to decide when new episodes of Rise come out. They were just paid to make it. They loved working on the show, and you can see that love in the episodes. You can see that love while you're watching it. But they're not the ones that you should be going to get more episodes made. If you want more episodes made, and you want to try and save the show, go. Let's see. I definitely liked a reference piece for everything you want out. Oh, by the way, for Owl House, follow Molly Knox Osterak. She's a writer on the show as well as a bunch of other shows. She's great. She is married to Nicole. No, not Nicole. Might be Nicole. What's that ginger name? I can't remember right now. Noelle Stevenson. She's married to Noelle Stevenson, the creator of She-Ra. She-Ra. It's very, very good. But let me find. Yeah, you can tell I've been watching a lot of Rise lately. Let's see here. Some great work by Tanya. Some great work by Alexa at Starry Luea. Them out. Also, you guys had one job and you made me 50-50. My TL is flooded. Dude, it's going to be flooded for a week. Let's see here. This scene made me cry. I believe I've gone back too far. Scroll back up. I'm pretty sure I liked something. Let's check is coming back on next Monday. Follow all these people. See here. Here we go. Holy Mangoes definitely has the resources. Because I believe Holy Mangoes was the one I saw the. Here we go. Nick Animation, Viacom CBS, and Brian Robbins TV, and Netflix and Nickelodeon. If you're going to go to anybody to try and get this show back and everything, send these Brian Robbins TV, send these people, send these accounts your voice, and be respectful. Don't go into this conversation swearing, making demands. Don't do any of that. Go in there saying respectfully, the show was important to me. The show was a cut above the rest. It is a whole new level of quality for the franchise and for the future of animation. And we would love to see more of it. We want a continuation of these characters and this form and a continuation of this series. Be respectful about it. Do not go in there making demands saying, hey, you better make the show or I'm never watching Nickelodeon again. Because I'm going to be honest with you, man, they don't care. They don't care that you're never going to watch Nickelodeon. And because they got 1 million kids all across the world watching Nickelodeon. 1 billion kids all across the world watching Nickelodeon. And that's never going to change. But putting the positive voices out there for long enough. Boycotts don't work in getting shows made. That's true for sure. Boycotts do work in different elements. But there's a lot to be said about going in with a positive attitude and a supportive attitude and trying to get the show made, trying to get the show supported. And if you do it right, it could happen. It's going to take a lot. It ain't going to be easy. Not going to be, you know, one tweet, two tweets. It's going to take a lot of people making their voices heard and making valid arguments and showing real love for the show. And it's not guaranteed. So go into this. You're going to take up arms and try and make this happen. Go into it with a grain of salt. Because you cannot guarantee, nobody can guarantee that you'll get what you want. Especially not in something like this. But the hope is maybe we can get these characters and the show back in some capacity with Flying Bark working on it, because they blew this series out of the park. And go support Flying Bark. Follow them. Watch their shows. Right now, they're working on the new show Lego Monkey Kid. And if you don't know what Monkey Kid is, oh, wait, episodes are out? I gotta watch that. Oh, I gotta watch that. Right here. If you're an animation fan, go watch this and support them, because this looks phenomenal. But I'm going to say it one last time. Support the creators of a show that you love. Support the people who make what you love. And follow them on their social medias, because you get the most amazing behind the scenes work ever. It's so great. It's so cool getting to go in and see everything being made in the background, being worked on behind the scenes. It's so, so good. Please do that. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else to say at this point. This has been a big week for animation. It's been a big week for the industry and everything that people are talking about. And again, I'm not a professional in the industry. I'm just somebody who follows it and watches it. And that's probably not going to change anytime soon. I'm going to always be watching animation and enjoying cartoons. But I like the idea of taking my love for that and creating a conversation around it. And that's what this is. This is the first attempt at creating a conversation around the animation industry and everything from a different perspective. And I hope that this finds somebody. I hope that we are able to create a conversation around this. I'm going to come back to doing this again next week. Same time, Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time. I don't know if there's going to be as much news that time around as there was this time, because we had a lot of news this week with the way Rise happened and all those other things. Dude, so much this week. But I'm still going to do it because I still think there's going to be a lot to talk about. Everybody, thanks for showing up. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this here now live, I'm going to be putting it up on my YouTube, so you can watch the full thing there. Follow me here on Twitch. Follow me over on my YouTube. It's Cody Hansel as well, where I make, smaller, more compact videos typically, but I think this is a good fit for the channel. And yeah, I don't know. That's about it. Great. It's actually a lot of fun to do, so I'm going to keep doing this. Hopefully, I'm a little bit cleaner. I got a lot of work to do on this presentation, but I feel like I'll get there. That being said, guys, gals, non-binary guys, gals, non-binary pals, thanks for hanging out. Have a good one. Peace.